So no, it's great to be here. So thank you for inviting me again. I do consider these sessions to be a really important part of what we do around the UK, is being accountable to you here in the NIPB. Kind of conscious of time, I could say more and maybe leave some of that for questions. I'm getting a clear nod there. Okay, so I'm quite happy in questions to talk about how the overall threat, rather than just in Northern Ireland, has changed over since I was last here 6 months ago, if that's helpful. But I won't do that now, just for time. One thing we have kind of done since I was last here is produced our kind of new 5-year strategy. So just as a quick summary of that, and it's based on our analysis of the threat, we have decided that we need to push our efforts more into the very highest end of high harm, which is where we've always partly been, but we've drifted down a bit. And we need to be focusing on tackling organised crime, what we call upstream, overseas, and online. And by upstream, we don't mean internationally. We mean going for the kingpins that are running organised crime groups, the enablers who are the nodes that are key to those organised crime groups surviving, rather than just individual foot soldiers. So that is the way we are trying to shift the agency's efforts. You would have seen an element of that reflected in the report. So you would have seen that we break disruptions down into major, moderate, and minor in terms of the impact that they have. And the minor disruptions have actually gone down slightly, but the major and the moderate ones have gone up, and that is quite deliberate from us. We are trying to push into making a bigger impact with potentially fewer, but more important disruptions. And the thesis behind that is that going for those will have more impact overall. So fewer, bigger disruptions will have more impact on reducing organised crime and the harm that it brings. When I was here last, Simon and I briefly talked about us sitting back and thinking about the NCA's role here and how we best play with PSNI into Northern Ireland. And we have done some work on that, and we have refocused around three areas that we have agreed on. And one of them is identifying who the highest value targets are in Northern Ireland, the most serious criminals, the people driving the most harm in the community, and then making sure that between us we are focusing our resources on them. Secondly, we are going to re-energise work we are doing on, for the UK as a whole, on fugitives. So one of the things that the NCA does is have liaison officers all around the world. One of the things we can do is pursue anyone for whom there is an arrest warrant out around the world, whether it's on a serious and organised crime or any other crime at all. And we've been quite successful in doing that for some forces. And we want to reinvigorate our work with PSNI so that we can do more to bring back criminals that Simon and team have got a warrant out for, and bring them back to face justice in Northern Ireland. And the third thing that we are doing is bolstering our efforts with the paramilitary crime task force, and particularly the use of our civil recovery powers, not only, but anything we can use on that. You'll have seen one example of that last week or the week before, when we got a property freezing order on a bit of land at Blackwater Town worth about £100,000. So that is an early indication of what we are trying to do, and there will be, if we are successful, more of that coming. So that is about using every tool we can in our toolkit to try and disrupt crime from wherever it comes. You mentioned already the seizure of about £6 million worth of cannabis, so about a third of a tonne in Belfast Port, coming in over from GB. That is obviously part of our role. It speaks to Frank's question earlier on about what we are doing around drugs. And that will absolutely involve investigating people in Northern Ireland, but as important, people outside Northern Ireland, but who are bringing drugs into Northern Ireland. That being one example. Another was a conviction that we got about 2 weeks ago on someone we arrested in Liverpool with 10 kilograms of heroin. It's a much smaller amount, but heroin obviously causing an awful lot of harm. We arrested them in February. They pled guilty a couple of weeks ago. And that was a Northern Ireland individual, but in Liverpool at the time. And then, of course, we are focused on GB criminals who are trying to import drugs into Northern Ireland. So we've had some good results on that in the last 2 quarters. Look, I'm conscious of time. You will have a series of questions. I can pick up on lots of detail around any of those areas.